Before we start, I'll just read out the usual chairman's introduction. I'm Councillor David Jeffries and I'm chairing today's meeting. To my right are the Planning Officer Anthony Deavy, and to my left are Jane Dale and Diane Hayden from Legal and Democratic Services. Also in the chamber are members of the committee and the public. Arrangements for dealing with planning applications. An officer's summary and update will be given. Items involving members of the public will be dealt with first, and speakers are restricted to 3 minutes with a warning when 30 seconds remain. Speakers are not permitted to circulate additional information, including photographs, plans or petitions. Any councillor not on the committee who is requested to speak will also be given 3 minutes. Members are to note the information given by officers and speakers. Any decision which is proposed which is contrary to the recommendations contained in the report will require reasons if the proposal is to refuse, and reasons and conditions if the proposal is to approve the application. In accordance with the Council's equality policy, speakers are asked to refrain from making any comments which could be construed as being discriminatory or defamatory. Otherwise, it would be necessary to intervene. Additionally, I would request that although differing views may be expressed, people respect those differences. Please ensure your mobile phones are switched to silent to avoid any disruption during the meeting. And also, while you're not speaking, put your microphones on mute if you've not already done so. Fire procedure. If the fire alarm sounds, attendees will be directed where to go. Please follow the instructions given. We've not been aware of any planned fire alerts or alarms or practices. Right, we'll move on to agenda item number 1. Declarations of pecuniary, non-pecuniary and prejudicial interests, and declarations under section 4 of the Planning Code of Practice for dealing with planning applications. Members to declare any interest in items on the agenda and the nature of such interests. Before we start, I'll just ask all members, did all members receive this from in your email box or inbox? Did all members receive that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So any other declarations of interest? No. Sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I meant to alert you to this. Just on the point that you just raised about this document here, I would just like to advise the committee that this document was not sent directly to officers. Officers became aware of it through a third party, and it hasn't, not in time to be placed on the public file. So I would ask you to treat it with caution. In particular, the photographs at the back, the officers haven't had the chance to check those for accuracy. So I would advise, please, that you treat that with the utmost caution. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Anybody else? Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Yesterday morning I visited West Hiller Road to look at the applicant's site and also the nearby properties. But during that visit, I didn't speak to anybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors, anything to say? No? Right, we'll now move on to agenda item number 2, which is to approve as a correct record the minutes of the meeting of this subcommittee held on the 30th September, pages 1 to 2. Could I have a proposer and a seconder, please? All those in favour? Thank you. Agenda item 3, have there been any withdrawals at all?
No withdrawals, Chairman.
Thank you. So we'll now move on to agenda item number 4. So I'll just pass you over to the planning officer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an application for planning permission for the erection of a first floor extension to the side with alterations to the existing roof and the construction of a dormer to the rear and roof lights to the front at 23 West Ella Road in Kirkella. The officer recommendation is refusal and there are no updates to the report as printed. Thank you.
Thank you. We have our first speaker today, which is Mr. Thompson. Yeah, 3 minutes, Mr. Thompson, with a 30-second warning. Just press that button. That's it, you're on.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Rich Thompson, and I'm the joint applicant along with my wife, Nicola. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge the decision made by the committee on our previous application. We have watched the recording of the meeting and fully understand and respect the concerns that were raised, and since then we have taken considerable steps to address each point put forward. We have carefully reviewed the reasons for refusal and worked closely with our architect, Dan at Innovation, to ensure that our amended proposal directly responds to those concerns. Some of the key changes we've made include removing the hip to gable design and instead extending the ridge to bring the hip in line with the adjoining property at number 21, offering a symmetrical view and reducing visual impact to the street scene. Remove the request to alter the front bay windows, which will also preserve symmetry to the adjoining property. Shorten the height of the rear dormer and reduce the size and number of windows to allow for a less imposing view. Remove the black cladding to the rear dormer and replace the material with a hung tile, which blends in with the roof, offering a more in keeping and sympathetic look to the property. We believe that this revised application is not only a significant improvement, but also a balanced and thoughtful response that aligns with local planning policy and community expectations. We are not trying to push forward unchanged plans, rather, we've listened to your concerns, we've adapted the plans and submitted a scheme that we now believe meets the expectations of the committee, and in hindsight, we agree that the previous submission wasn't within keeping with the neighbouring property and street scene. We therefore respectfully ask the committee to consider the amendments made and the care taken to mitigate previous concerns. We are confident that the revised proposal now represents a scheme that delivers the much needed living space that we require for our family, while being sensitive to the context and to the concerns that the committee have voiced. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr Thompson. Next speaker is Councillor Tucker.
Good afternoon, Chairman and committee members. You may recall this proposal as a resubmission of a previous application that was refused here as a committee. Since that decision, the applicant has taken great care to review all comments and the feedback provided, and has worked diligently to address every concern in this revised scheme. The original application included a full hip to gable extension, which understandably raised concerns about the loss of symmetry between a pair of semi-detached dwellings. In response, the applicant has adopted a more sensitive approach. The existing rear wing at first floor level has been widened slightly to allow access to the second floor, introducing a gable to the side elevation. Importantly, this gable is set back from the front elevation, allowing the original hip roof at the front of the building to be retained, preserving the visual balance of the character of the pair. To assist with visualization, the applicant has provided a 3D rendering of the proposal, which was sent directly to members ahead of this meeting. Another concern raised was the proposed alteration of the circular bay window. In the revised scheme, the bay window is retained to its original form, further safeguarding the symmetry and the architectural integrity of the front elevation. The rear dormer has been significantly revised. The dormer walls are now set back by 1 metre from the rear wall, which greatly reduces the visibility and the bulk. This revised positioning aligns the neighbouring dormer, which can be clearly seen in the rear elevation drawing. In terms of materials, the dormer external finish has been reconsidered. The walls and the cheeks have now been clad in plain hanging tiles to match the main roof. This change ensures the dormer integrates more sympathetically with the existing structure. Finally, in response to the concerns about the amount of glazing, the large rear-facing doors are being replaced by smaller casement windows that match the style and proportions of the existing fenestation. These revisions demonstrate a clear, genuine, a clear and genuine constructive response to the committee's feedback. The applicant has made thoughtful architectural adjustments regarding the materials and refine the proportions to ensure it integrates harmoniously. In conclusion, this revised proposal reflects a clear commitment of the high quality design. It addresses the concerns of this committee, and I respectfully ask that committee recognises the hard work that's gone into this and support the application. Thank you, members. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed for that. You wanted to, you mentioned about speaking, Karen, did you put your hand up, I believe?
Oops, sorry, Chair. As Vice Chair, I'm always happy to jump in if no other hands pop up.
Well,
I don't see any. Oh,
well,
after you then, Councillor Robson, please.
thank you, Councillor Robson.
Thank you. I suppose I ought to speak first because of the fact it was me that suggested what we call shooting the ridge, extending the ridge in order to keep the hip slope and to keep the symmetry of the two, of the pair of semis. I've very carefully, I was the one who proposed refusal last time because of the fact that I thought it was overdevelopment, I thought it was ugly, and it didn't keep the symmetry. I'm delighted to see that the applicant has in fact followed our suggestions. It looks a heck of a lot better. It looks very much in keeping with the street scene, and I have got absolutely no compunction, I think that's the word, about recommending approval on this. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Meredith, if you want to.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I must admit, I found this a very awkward application to interpret, to consider. And speaking from my own point of view as a carer for the generation above myself, I can't imagine, as has been dictated in the emails to us, that with 3 generations under one roof and some in need of care, it must be an absolute juggle and a half. And if you look at the plans, there does appear to be only 1 bathroom in the house. And really, that's the only thing we're being asked to consider here. There is an approval from 2024 that covers the 2nd floor bedroom. Everything else is already in place. It is simply that ensuite that is the only difference between what's approved and what's before us today. And so from a personal point of view, I have some sympathy. As with Councillor Robson, I objected at the last application and I supported refusal because I didn't like the unbalancing of the property. And as we can see on the image in front of us, the main ridge line is now symmetrical with the neighbouring property. The bit that abuts out is interpretable. It could be argued as affecting the street scene and in conflict with the design code, but it could also be argued as subservient, which is the definition of what an extension should be. And so I am inclined to agree with Councillor Robson, but I'm not sure enough yet which way I'm going to go. So I'm hoping other hands go up so we can debate this a bit further.
Yes, Councillor. Thank you. Sorry, yeah, you, yeah.
Just checking. Yes, I have to say that I looked very carefully at this, and I wasn't quite as strong viewed about it last time as what some of my colleagues were on the committee. I kind of think that the street scene thing is a bit of a misnomer. We have so many alterations in streets. I find it difficult to understand why we even suggest there's a street scene. And as to balance, well, quite frankly, I sometimes wonder about those. However, I do understand why my colleagues said that. Not 100% sure this is less balanced than the one that they had before. That said, it is clear that the applicants have tried very hard to address everything that this committee asked for, and therefore I think it would be very strange of us to therefore say, we asked for all of this, you've done it, and now we're going to turn it down again. That would be a little sad. So therefore I have no issue with what they're trying to achieve here. It doesn't appear to cause a problem as far as I'm concerned. I find it difficult with things such as compromises the architectural integrity of the dwelling. Well, really, I'm not 100% sure what that's supposed to say. Right now, as far as I can see, it does what it's supposed to do. It meets what this committee itself asked for, and therefore I have no hesitation in seconding the application for approval.
Thank you, councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Hopton, you wanted next?
Yeah, very familiar with this street, being sort of adjoining to my ward and the village where I live. So I mean, driven down it probably thousands of times. I'm tempted to say when you look at West Stella Road, all bets are off, because like literally it's such a mishmash of properties along there in a very, very nice way. Don't get me wrong; it's one of the most prestigious properties in the whole area. But it, you know, streets in the whole area. Yeah, you look at next door, which we just saw the picture there, which is all rendered and is extremely different from what we're looking at today. With, I don't know what that is sticking out of the side, but obviously a bedroom or something. But so I'm not quite sure. I think I'm probably agreeing with what everybody else has said here already. But I just wanted to check with Anthony, if I may. I don't want to go against you guys, because without good reason, shall we say, but I am struggling to see why we're recommending refusal. Could you just clarify for me, please? Sorry.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. We have very clear design policy expectations in terms of well-designed places, and a very newly adopted design code which sets out in a lot of detail what we expect to see through the design of new development. And the report sets out quite clearly where there's a conflict with both the design code and the policy. I do acknowledge, however, that design is a subjective matter. We acknowledge in the report that this is much improved compared to the previous scheme. We just don't think that it goes far enough. We feel that the unbalancing effect on the pair of semi-detached properties is still there. The applicant does have planning permission for a scheme of works that would restore that symmetry to those semi-detached properties at first floor and roof level, which we feel is much better. And the dormer at the back particularly fails many of the codes and guidance within the design code. But like I say, we do acknowledge it is a better scheme than was presented previously, and it is a subjective decision on design. So the recommendation is refusal. But I have heard Councillor Meredith talk about its subservient scale, which I agree with. And he would still get the benefit of restoring those first floor windows to a symmetrical manner. The deletion of the square bay is an improvement. One thing you should bear in mind is the applicant does have planning permission for other works like a porch, a forward projecting garage, and single story extensions at the back, which he could still implement. So you need to take those into account. But in terms of the first floor, definitely it's an improvement. And in terms of the roof, it is more subservient, but still unbalancing, I feel.
Yeah. So just that all makes sense. Apart from things like when we're talking about the balance, obviously they're not balanced at the moment because the other ones had a big, and you look at the footprint of the other property, it's a lot bigger already, both at the front, as you can see from the existing picture, but also when you look on any sort of, overhead image or the plans that have been provided part of here. So it does feel like there's a lack of symmetry already. And just to put in context, why I'm saying mishmash down West Stella Road is because they're all different. There's a lot being knocked down. There's a lot of very, very different, there's a property up towards Elverley Drive at the moment that has been, totally demolished and they're starting again. So whilst I think we need to protect the street scene, I'm very much agreeing with Councillor Robson, Councillor Wilkinson, and I think whoever else, Councillor Meredith, I think is erring that way as well. So thank you.
Councillor Harrison.
To be honest, it was, thank you, Chair. Primarily what Councillor Hopton just said, it was just to reiterate that street is a mishmash. So again, the design being subjective, I think when you drive down that street, there is no consistency in terms of those houses whatsoever. Therefore, I think in this case, I think it is, well designed and almost in keeping by virtue of the fact it is a mishmash. So there's nothing else to add, but I'll be supporting the approval.
Councillor Robson. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. When we go against the recommendations of the officers, we give reasons, which we've done, and also conditions. That's what it says in the preamble. May we consider removing any further permitted development rights as a condition so that it doesn't become the beginning of an empire. Thank you, Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. The property's already been extended and has planning permission for works at the front and the back, so I feel they've probably exhausted all of the permitted development rights they have. It would also be difficult because most of the things that they've already got planning permission for are not permitted development, so it would be difficult to remove permitted development rights because you'd have to remove it off. You'd have to effectively remove a right for something they've got permission to build. So I don't think that's sensible, but I don't think there's much they could do now without needing planning permission anyway, because they've already extended to the side. They've got permission to extend at the front. The roof is not original, so you couldn't extend that any longer, assuming you granted permission for this. And at the back, they've got permission for a very extensive scheme of extensions. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Bowling. Oh, have you finished, Councillor?
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to say thank you for that. So, I mean, the only sticking point was really the design code, and as you said, the design code is subjective and is open to interpretation. We just interpret it differently in this committee. Good Chair.
Councillor Bowling.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, reading this report, I was initially quite concerned at the number of aspects of the application which didn't fit in with the design code. So bearing that in mind, I paid a visit yesterday morning and looked at the potential, looked at the application in comparison with the existing property that's already there. And to be honest, I think that any level of harm would be less than substantial. So I'm quite happy to approve this application. I also noticed that there's been no objections from any neighbours, and there's been no objection from the parish council either. So I'm quite happy with it. Thank you.
Councillor Needham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's worth noting that it rarely happens at this committee where plans are sent back to the drawing board, so to speak, and then when they are represented, they've made the sufficient changes, and changes that go from what was a poor design to what's looking like a good design. I've taken on board everything that we're looking at with regard to street scene. The street scene is mixed, and so therefore I don't see that this is offensive in any way. I think that first line of the roof now is symmetrical, and I think for the work that's been involved and the fact that they've met all the terms that were potentially going to make it a refusal last time have been addressed, and it's a good design, so I'll be supporting that. Thank you.
Councillor Cortish.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was on the edge. I think on the one hand, it clearly breaks the design code. I think it's really important that we respect our design code that keeps our beautiful and unique county beautiful and unique. That said, it's a tight one. It's really close. And I think the arguments that the ward councillor, the applicant, Councillor Hopton and others have made on the street scene, on the dominance and the balance of the buildings, and on the impact of the character, etc. I think on balance, I agree with those arguments. It is a close one, though, Mr. Chairman. I think it's probably worth using this as a case study for training of any new councillors in the future, because it's a tight one, and I suppose day to day with different committee members, I think the committee's opinion could change on this. But luckily for the applicant, I think on this day, I think we're going to make the right decision in approving this, although it's tight.
Thank you very much. Any other councillor wish to say anything? Sorry, you propose, councillor, that for approval. What are you actually planning reasons then for approving this application, please?
Because it enhances the pair of semis and it enhances the street scene. And it's in keeping with the age of the building and the style of the fenestration of the building. It's got everything going for it, as I see it.
That's it.
May I come in on conditions, Chairman? Obviously, development hasn't commenced, so you would need to impose a condition requiring development to start within 3 years, which is a standard condition. Some of the materials are detailed on the plans, but some aren't. So what we would want is a a condition to deal with materials to match the host dwelling unless detailed otherwise on the plans. We would need an obscure glazing condition to prevent overlooking from a side facing first floor window, which is fairly standard. And we would need a approved plans condition to control the approved plans. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah. Are we happy to go along with those conditions?
Yes,
Being
and
outlined?
the roof tile matches the tile of the next door dwellings. It all looks in keeping. Yeah.
Can I come in on that, Chairman? Sorry. The host dwelling currently has a rosemary tile, like a plain tile, which you can see in the photograph. And what the applicant's proposing for the roof and the dormer is a slate tile. The property is not in a conservation area, and they could re-roof their existing property without planning permission. So we've not raised an objection in principle to that. But it does contribute to the imbalance that we're concerned about. So it's a slate. It's a slate. Well, he's actually said slate / plain tile roof, and obviously plain tiles are slate tiles.
Definitely plain tile to match. I've just done the same on my house, though, just in order to match next doors. I re-roofed a roof that didn't really need re-roofing, but it looks so much better.
I mean, we can impose a condition that says, notwithstanding the details shown on the plan, the material shall be plain tile to match the existing. You then you can get a plain hanging tile for a dormer, so that shouldn't be an issue. But what he's showing is clearly annotated as slate. But I can impose a condition that requires plain tiles.
Yes.
Councillor Hopton.
And just an observation there, though, that the existing towers on this house don't match next doors based on those pictures. They're a different colour. So I don't know if they're planning to re-roof the whole house or not, but I'm sorry if I've missed that, but I don't, those are totally different roofs, because obviously people replace the roofs at different points, don't they?
I think one of the tiles, well, they're either newer or cleaner. I think but they are the same tile.
Right, councillors, any other comments you wish to make? Just bearing in mind, obviously, the report that the planning officers put there about the new conditions, especially on the street scene side. But you know, obviously you've read through them and you're fully aware of what the situation is in that position. There was just one point I wanted to just ask about, was on this plan that we've got now, it's not actually including the previous plans for the garage going forward. That, you know, that does concern me at the moment.
Yes, Chairman, like I mentioned, the applicant does benefit from planning permission for works to the front of the property, which you can see there as a garage and porch projection to the front, and quite a significant extension at the rear. He can build those. He's got planning permission for those. And if he gets planning permission for the works he's proposing today, he could build both. But we weren't concerned about the previous scheme. That's got planning permission. And if you're not concerned about the works to the roof, then cumulatively there will be an imbalance. And that's what we're concerned about. But if you feel that the impact on the street scene is acceptable, then that is a matter for you as the decision maker.
Thank you. I feel a bit similar to Councillor Coltish. I feel, you know, that when you actually look at that, I think the original roof line and then the new one, it even looks a lot tidier. But, you know, listening to all the other councillors' comments about street scene, et cetera, well, you know, so if no other councillors have got any comments to wish to make, we'll move straight to the vote. We've had a proposal from Councillor Robson for approval, seconded by Councillor Wilkinson. All those in favour?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Unanimous.
That was unanimous. Thank you very much indeed, councillors. Yeah, that application has been approved with the conditions that set out by the planning officers. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Right, agenda item number 5, planning appeal decisions.
Thank you, Chairman. Two appeal decisions this time, both to do with agricultural prior approvals for change of use of agricultural buildings to dwellings. This is a separate, this is a different process to planning permission. It's a permitted development right that if you comply, you can apply for prior approval for certain aspects from the local planning authority. These particular ones, like I say, conversion of agricultural buildings to dwellings. The first was at Waplington Lane in Allerthorpe. This appeal was dismissed. The main issue in the appeal was a structural report came in with the application, which the officers and the inspector felt did not demonstrate that the building was structurally capable of being converted without significant alterations. The inspector found that the report didn't demonstrate that the existing frame and foundations of the building were capable of sustaining the works, namely the creation of a mezzanine floor within the building. Show you a photograph of the building for context. So typical portal frame agricultural building, which we have many of in the East Riding. We take a fairly consistent view in respect of prior approvals for the conversion of this type of building, that they're not suitable candidates, but we are getting mixed decisions from the planning inspectorate. This one came down in our favour. Like I say, they didn't give us any information to demonstrate that the frame could sustain the internal works that were required, or the foundations of the building could sustain the internal works required to convert it into a dwelling. So that appeal was dismissed. Because the inspector felt that it didn't benefit from the permitted development right, they didn't go on to consider whether or not the design and external appearance, which is what you apply for prior approval for, was acceptable. And obviously there were many alterations to the exterior of the building proposed. But the inspector didn't go on to consider that because they said it failed at the first hurdle, i.e. it wasn't capable of conversion, or it hadn't been demonstrated that it was capable of conversion, which is the key. They could obviously do another report and submit that, and we'd have to reconsider it. And so that one was dismissed. An alternative decision at Manor Farm in Asselby. This was a similar type of building, a portal frame agricultural building. We refused it for similar grounds, well, refused to grant prior approval. In this particular case, it had a more detailed structural report. The inspector felt that was robust and did conclude that the existing floor slab and the installation of a new floor slab, which wasn't load bearing, and the installation of new internal framework did not amount to a rebuild of the structure. And so it did benefit from the permitted development right, and then went on to conclude that the prior approval should be granted for the external alterations, which, as you're building, like I say, typical portal frame type agricultural building, asbestos sheet roof type of arrangement, and there's your scheme of works that they've got prior approval for at appeal. So two conflicting views from the inspectors, and like I say, nationally we are getting mixed reviews, but in East Riding we have taken to date a fairly consistent view on this type of building not being suitable for conversion without significant rebuild or alteration. So we'll keep our eye on how the future appeal decisions come in across the county and the country to make sure that we're in line with what other authorities and the inspectorate are doing. But for the time being, say two completely different views on very similar type of buildings. Thank you, Chairman.
Agenda item 6, any other item about chairman decides is urgent by reason of special circumstances, which there are none. And thank you very much today. That concludes today's meeting. Thank you very much, councillors. Thank you.